Hi, my name is Lily Clayton Hansen. I'm an author, interviewer, and actor, and I'm so excited to be here today with two wonderful Nashville-based musicians, Miss Jenny Leigh and Mr. Adam Wakefield. The two, who are also married and they are co-parents, have been performing together for over a decade since they met at a music festival back home on the East Coast. Recently, they formalized their dynamic duo called Wakefield, and they're going to be releasing some amazing new music soon. So we're so excited to be here to just give a little bit of insight into their music making magic and also to talk about what it's been like to perform as a family band as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, first things first. So you two met in what I think is a very romantic way. You met at a music festival. It seems very cinematic, which is perfect for Jenny because she's also an actor as well, like myself. Did you two know upon meeting that music would be such a big part of your relationship?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think at the time. I don't know. It was what brought us together, but I don't think if you had asked us then if we'd be together now.
Well, it depends on
we would know.
what point in the relationship. The first, couple of days, it literally just comes down to, well, that girl's beautiful and I want to talk to her. And, and then you start hanging out. I didn't even know she did music until, I don't know, maybe the second day we were talking or whatever. And
yeah, via email, by the way.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I'm aging ourselves.
Yeah, the old school, what texts used to be. Email,
yeah.
But yeah. So we were emailing, and I remember she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a singer and I do country music," and I was like, "Oh no!" And she sent me her songs, and the guys were like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I'm not good at lying. If she's bad, it's not gonna be good." And then she sent me her songs, and I was like, "Oh, she's actually really good. This will be much easier than I thought."
Thanks.
I love that. And was it like a instant, natural thing for you two to start performing together? And how long did it take after you met to start playing together?
It was days. They were recording an album up in Baltimore, and I went and sang on it. So that was probably a few days after we met.
Yeah. Well, the first time I heard her sing live, a friend of mine was doing a record, and we were recording gang vocals for it, which is like when you get a whole bunch of people in a room with one microphone and sing along, like We Are the World or something like that. But with a little smaller budget. And and so we had all these people coming, and I was like, oh, this would be the perfect way for her to sing and kind of show us her thing, because there'll be a whole bunch of other people there, so she won't be nervous. And also, it'd be a good introduction for me to hear her sing and everything. And so she showed up, and she was the only person of the I think 4 or 5 people we called to do it that showed up. And so she was like, "Were you guys the first?"
Yeah.
First, I think
I thought it was a trick. I thought it was a
punked.
trick.
We were like, "No, they just didn't show up." But she's like, "Well, do you want me to sing?" And we're like, "Yeah." So she went in and sang, and I was in the booth, and she was in the vocal booth singing. And I remember when she first started singing, I was in there. It was me and my buddy Frank, my other buddy Tomas, who we were doing the record for. And she just started singing, and I was like, "I'm gonna marry that girl." I said that day. So stop skipping a jump 10 years later.
Yeah.
Put a ring on it.
See, and the flakiness of the entertainment industry served you well.
I know exactly.
I always say that. I'm like, if you show up, it's you're already
that's half the battle.
Leaps and bounds ahead of others.
It's true. I was really there for the pizza, but but yeah.
Well, great. Well, let's talk about both of your beginnings in music, because it's been a part of your lives. It seems like from the beginning. I know it's also a big part of your upbringing as well, and family life. When did you two know that, music was going to be your professional career? And then also, was the genre of country music always what you knew you were going to focus on?
For me, I've always wanted to be in country. It's just what I grew up listening to. It's what's inspired me. I love the songwriting aspect of it. So for me, yes. I think that when I was in Baltimore, I was working at Under Armour, which was sports culture and all of that. And I just didn't fit. And I was taking all my PTO and coming down to Nashville and doing rounds and writing appointments and things like that. And so I knew once I could get enough traction and enough money saved up, I would move to Nashville. I knew that was going to happen. And I just kind of put a flag in the ground and said October 1st, whatever year it was, oh my gosh, 2013, I think. I decided that was going to happen. But then I met him that summer right beforehand, and he kind of was on a different path with his band. And so I wasn't really sure how it was going to end up. But I convinced him to come with me.
Well, I'm glad you didn't get into bro country while you were working at Under Armour. I was thinking that's probably what they were listening to.
Yes, I think Cole Swindell actually did come up and like hang out, and I think he may have performed up there. Jason Aldean performed up there too. So it's just like that was never really my scene, but country music, like in the 90s and 80s and 90s, that's kind of where my heart's at.
Yeah, Shania.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the powerhouses, Leanne Rimes and Martina McBride for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Adam? I know that, you grew up, again, similar to Jenny on the East Coast. And when were you first introduced to country music?
Well, I'm not exactly sure who falls under that specific umbrella, but I think John Prine, I guess you could put under the country music umbrella. And I grew up listening to John Prine and Willie Nelson when I was a kid. It was more like blues and R&B and a lot of classic rock and like Crosby, Stills and Nash and James Taylor and stuff like that when I was a kid. But I never really got into country music. I remember my buddy Paul's dad used to listen to like 90s country music. I always thought it was so cheesy, and we always used to make fun of him.
I love it.
Hopefully Paul's dad isn't listening to this now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, so I don't know. So I never really got into country music that much till I got here. When I moved here, I was more into bluegrass music, and bands like the Steel Drivers and Bill Monroe and Doc Watts and the great guitar players too, like Brian Sutton.
That's amazing. You were into the Steel Drivers and you ended up actually, sitting in for their frontman for a certain time.
Yeah, that doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah,
no,
amazing.
Cool. Yeah. And then I think it was kind of one of those things where I was in Nashville and I was like, all right, I need to find something in country music that I like. And so I had to go back, like before the 2000s, before the 90s, before the 80s. And I don't know, I love Willie Nelson, like Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings. I love Randy Travis. I think the market for music, especially when it comes to country music, has done a lot of disservice to the actual music. But through all the mud, every once in a while, a diamond in the rough will kind of poke its head out. Somebody like Randy Travis, somebody who can really sing. And kind of, Chris Stapleton's another one, undeniably talented to the point to where they don't fit the mold at the time and they create the mold. And those are the kind of people I always seem to gravitate to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about your formal training. I know because Adam is a jazz trained musician. I know that you recently went back to that. So I'd love to talk a little bit about why you decided to get back to your roots recently. And then you, Jenny, have, studied, everything from guitar to mandolin. So when did you first begin studying, I guess, like in a classroom sort of setting or with like an instructor? And how did you break away to formulate your own sound?
Well, man, it's a lot. It's a big one. I started playing piano.
Do your best.
I started playing piano when I was 4. I remember I was at show and tell, and these girls would come in and play piano, and I was like, they're terrible. So I remember one day this girl came in, Megan Rance, sweetest girl in the whole wide world, love her to death. But she came in, she played some song, and they just started like learning piano. But so I remember I heard her play some song, and I went to my mom, my brother's baseball practice, and I was like, I want to play piano. She's like, all right. So, and growing up, we lived in the middle of nowhere up in New Hampshire, and we had a piano. That was kind of the only thing we had. So it was piano or singing, or spoons. So I decided to learn how to play piano, and I got, did classical stuff with a teacher for a while. And then I got into jazz later on because I didn't really like classical. At least back then, I didn't really like classical music. I love classical music now. And then I went to music school for jazz, and then kind of, left music school because I went to school with some really great jazz players that were just, whooping my butt. So I was like,
as jazz players do,
Yeah.
right?
it was, I don't know, man. I had imposter syndrome just like I do today when it comes to jazz. But so I left and kind of started a band with my brother, and he just dropped out of college. And so I was like, well, cool, I'll drop out too. We'll go start a band. So we moved to Baltimore and we had a band, and that band kind of did, we started out doing like Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers, and then I did a lot of the writing for the group. So the group kind of followed my little musical journey. So later on, we really started getting into, stuff that, I go through phases. So it was like Ray Charles and D'Angelo and, people, Stevie Wonder and Donny Hathaway and people like that. And the Meters, a lot of New Orleans based stuff I really got into. So that band, and Jenny was in that band. We did that for a long time. And then I met her and moved here. And then when I was here, it kind of became about country music, and went and did a TV show. And then I ended up having a record deal, and I just was always trying to fit what I do into this like box for the market. And it just never really worked, I don't think. And so finally, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I bought the grand piano, and I just got back into it again. And, just got finally remembered that it's just about your craft. It's not about labels or, fans or likes or comments. It's really just about your relationship with your instruments, the most important thing.
Well, I still think you should have stuck with the spoons, but that's just my personal opinion. Joking. Jenny?
Yeah. I grew up singing. Really, singing has been the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. I always did it as a hobby. I would do talent shows and chorus classes and things like that. And I got pretty good at it. I did a lot of formal training in the way of vocal lessons along the way. But as far as music theory and all that, like I've really been more of an ear trained singer. And so I've just kind of followed that. And then I didn't really get into songwriting or instruments besides playing piano as a kid until Nashville kind of came in the mix. And I really wanted to get in the scene of songwriting and being able to like go out and actually play for myself. Then you get to Nashville, there's thousands of people who are so talented at playing instruments that I typically leave that job to those who have dedicated their lives to it. But singing for me has been my instrument, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And I just never really thought I could do it as a career until I tried a career and realized that, I wasn't happy doing the 9 to 5 or, the normal path. And so that brought me here, and I've been able to kind of do studio work and sing as a demo singer and do acting and music shows and things like that, which have really just enriched my experience and allowed me to expand and actually make money doing it as a career.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. I'm curious how moving to Nashville has, shaped you both as artists. I mean, I always think of Nashville as, for musicians, like the bar could not be higher. This in New Orleans, in my opinion. I mean, everybody is just fabulous, even the people that are just performing on the street. So how has being, amongst the best of the best, I guess, caused you to, maybe raise your own bar?
Yeah. I mean, it kicks your ass. You get here and you look around and you can't help but compare yourself to others. And you just have to learn to do it in a healthy way so that it's not, like you said, the comparison for you is really, where were you on this yesterday in comparison to today, rather than comparing to other artists. But it can be tough. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. And so I feel like you have to be confident, you have to work hard, and you have to have something to say or, a talent to offer. And I think that there's a lot of room for everybody. But I think that at the very lowest level of any success in this town, the talent comes first. You have to have the talent before you can do anything else. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, sorry, did you want to jump in or? Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about reality TV because you two have that in common. Which is really interesting. You both, I guess had your first, experience of mainstream success thanks to reality television, which is again, a way that people do it these days. I know particularly a lot of people in Nashville. So how did the experience of putting yourself out there like that and having to grow as an artist and also be judged, quite frankly, shape you as an artist? And I'll just mention that Adam was on The Voice and you were the runner-up.
Yep. First loser, season 10. That's not mine. That's Will Mosley. Yes.
Very romantic way to put it.
He was first loser on American Idol.
Don't sell yourself short, friend.
I know. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's I mean, when I did The Voice, I mean, I just would go try out for it because I would, back when people watched the TV, I would just like flip the channels, whatever, and it would come on and be like, this kid sucks.
Just like those piano girls in the first grade.
My whole career is based on spite. It's actually too. But so I don't know. So I was like, you know what, I should go do it, and so I went and tried out a bunch of times, and I went and I sang R&B for 3 or 4 auditions, got a call back twice. And then I was like, all right, I guess it's not meant to be. And then I moved here, and I was here, and a scout saw me singing with my bluegrass band. He's like, you should try out for The Voice. And I was like, I did 4 times. And they didn't want me. And he's like, what did you sing? And I was like, well, I sang Stevie Wonder one year. I sang Donny Hathaway one year. He's like, well, I was like, and he's like, all right, well, maybe you should try a different path. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, you're a white guy from Nashville. What do you think you should sing? And I said, oh, okay. So I went and bought some cowboy boots and a cowboy hat that day and learned some terrible music and went and sang it for them and, sang the piss out of it. And they were like, oh, great. And I was on the TV show, So,
it was your first acting job.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So it was fun. I mean, it was for my audition, I sang, for my first private audition for them, I sang James Brown and I sang a Luke Bryan song. And so it was funny because they were like, thank God for Chris Stapleton, because they were like, so what are you again? And I said, Chris Stapleton. And they're like, okay, we get it. So, so it was fun. And I mean, doing the shows, I don't know, I think people, it was just fun. Everybody was cool, especially people that worked for the show. Man, coolest people, super supportive. Everybody, and it's like a job, you know what I mean? They do 2 seasons in a year now. So it's like, they're just there working, they're just trying to make it easy for everybody, make sure everybody's happy. It's really just the other contestants that are the worst, and it's not all of them. It's always just the couple of bad apples, I mean, I had a couple times where I had to take a grown man older than myself, outside and have a talk with him about his attitude, that kind of stuff. But it was never the people that I was working with on the show. The people on the show were awesome. The judges were always cool. Everybody was, and it was like, oh, did they tell you what to do or what you had to sing or what you had to say? They never did. I did end up singing a Journey song at one point, which I wasn't super pumped about. But
you made it your own.
But that was the extent of making me do what I didn't want to do. I sang a bunch of really cool songs, and they were very open to letting me just do my thing and sing a bunch of different, I'd sing a Willie Nelson song, and then I'd go sing a Ray Charles song, it's so it was, they were cool and just supportive. So.
And I feel like being there, watching him do it, as a supporter, I feel like your influence reached other contestants as far as helping them, because some people on the show, it's their first gig, or they've played at a coffee shop in their hometown or whatever. But for Adam, who's grown up, who has a band, who's been touring, who's has played every shithole from east to west, he's been on the road, he understands it. And I feel like he really helped contestants find their voices and their confidence in the show too, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
And a teacher mentality, a mentor type.
Well, and the nice thing about doing that show, for someone, on the singing side of things, it's I've always my whole life been so focused on I got a 2-hour show, I got a 3-hour show, it's always I got 15, 20, 25, 30 songs I got to be working on. And what's great about that show is it's you got a whole week to work on 45 seconds worth of material. So I didn't realize how even that lesson I've transferred to the piano and really used it there as well. Is just getting that that depth of detail oriented, that's, that's the kind of stuff that separates good and great. And I don't think I, had made that a priority until I'd done that show and really, just picked apart every little piece of everything that I was singing and go, oh, shit, if I put this attitude towards everything, towards songwriting, towards my piano playing, towards everything else, and really just, try to perfect everything, then you'll get closer to perfect.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Everyone's, an acting school I studied at in the UK where we spent like 40 hours one week on one monologue, and I mean, same thing where it was like, I couldn't believe we were doing it. And I thought, what a waste of time. Hopefully they're not listening, but then when I actually delivered it, I was like, oh, like the bomb could have gone off and I would have kept going.
Yeah. I would say for me, the show I was on, it was more scripted. It was Nashville.
Do you want to say the name?
Yeah. So on the show Nashville, I started as an extra when I first moved to town to meet people, really. And then I was standing in line and they came up to me and somebody put a measuring tape around my thigh. And I was like, you're going to have to buy me dinner first. Like, what is happening? And they're like, your thighs are the same as Hayden Panettiere's. Do you want to be can we use you as her stand-in? I was like, okay. So then I ended up being her stand-in for years. And I felt like I went to acting school while I was on the set as a stand-in.
What a weird introduction.
Yeah,
it was someone was doing that you could file a lawsuit against them.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, they were just in a rush and they were busy and like, oh, we need you right now, and how TV can be. And so, but it ended up being like my family and my most favorite experience that I've had in Nashville. And I just kind of worked my way up through that and then did some writing for the show and then finally got on the show in the 5th and 6th season. And then the 6th season was going really well and it got canceled. I was like, no, but it was really great. And I loved being able to marry acting and music. For me, it was like the perfect scenario. So I really loved TV through that experience. And I hope that there's more production that comes to Nashville in the coming years because that was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to talk a little bit about your backgrounds because I don't normally associate country music with the East Coast, but I'm sure that it's much more popular there than one would think. But how did growing up on the East Coast, do you think, and it's an interesting time to reflect on it because you've been in Nashville for over a decade now, but shape your approach to songwriting, particularly in the country music industry? Because you both have like a very like sharp shooting sort of, like down to earth, very like grounded approach to songwriting.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just the songwriting in general, just calling it songwriting, like lives in Nashville, like for me, it was always here. Like you could write songs and do things everywhere else. But for me, like being in this community and collaborating within that energy of people has always been attractive to me. And so I didn't really feel like I was a part of it all the way until we were here. And I don't know if you feel the same. But.
Or do you feel like growing up, I guess, like outside of the South, I mean, is influential at all in terms of like the sound that you cultivated over the years?
I think for me, it's less about North and South and more about like the landscape growing up. Like for me, my school had more cows outside of the window looking out from the cafeteria than it did students inside the school. It was very, small town vibes, football Friday nights, that whole thing. So for me, I kind of identified with country music in sort of those in the box, sort of topics that they touch on quite a bit. So for me, it felt natural. It spoke to me from a young age, despite I wasn't in the South,
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, I think everybody was listening to John Prine. I mean, especially like my parents are kind of like hippies. So, I like to call them, they're kind of like NPR parents, so they're listening to, they love Joni Mitchell and James Taylor and John Prine. I think as far as like songwriting and country music and what I like about country music songwriting, or at least the way it used to be was, it was about saying a lot with a little, and it was about painting these big pictures. John Prine was so good at it. Painting a big picture with just a very small words, very small sentence or something, And so for me, I think what attracted me to country music songwriting and is just kind of the honesty in there and the sincerity. And I think, there's different songs you listen to for different reasons. If you listening to like gospel music, you're listening to it for your relationship with God and to uplift you and to bring you joy or things like that. Or if you listen to like, P-Funk, you're probably smoking a joint and hanging out and just grooving out. But what I love about country music and a lot of those songwriters, people like John Prine and, like it's just about the sincerity and about painting a picture and not trying to like, I hate when like songwriters try and tell you what to do or how things are, or all that kind of, it's like, stop, like they're trying to lecture you or preach you, it's like, no, man, just paint a picture. Like if you can look at if you can take a snapshot of a time and a place in America and describe it to me in a way where I understand it more from listening to your song, and you've done your job, and that's what always attracted me to that kind of songwriting. I mean, we've gone the complete other direction now, and we use, we've got these songs with tons of words in them, and they're all saying the same thing. So I don't know when it kind of flipped, but back in the day, I feel like that's what it was. It was about, now I feel like it's like simple songs for simple people, and it's like, no, it's complex songs using simple words and simple phrases to paint a bigger picture. And I think it's all just kind of been dumbed down now, and everybody's just like she said. Now everybody just wants to talk about football and or whatever.
Simple songs for simple people. My gosh,
yeah.
Don't undermine your audience's intelligence. Ever patronize to them,
Exactly.
Well, if we start educating people, maybe they'll like better music. So, I guess they kind of goes hand in hand.
We're not going to talk about politics, with most people in country music don't. So
exactly.
Well, let's talk about Wakefield, because that's why we're here. And again, and you two corrected me about this before the interview, so thank you. You have been playing together for years and years, so it's not like this is a new project. You've just sort of, I guess, crisply formalized it, or maybe are marketing it different. So let's talk about the beginnings of Wakefield. I know the pandemic and your porch concerts had a little bit to do with it, and the support of their neighbors.
Yeah, we during COVID, we really didn't have anywhere to play, and before it became popular to do the online shows. Even when it was popular, we still preferred the live show experience, and so we put a song out and sang it on our front porch, and the neighbors came out. We had a couple of people go on their porches the first time, and they loved it, and people came up and asked us, hey, would you guys do that again? That was really great. And so for a while there, we were doing it every Friday night here on the porch, and more people came, and we've kept up with it as much as we can over the years. And
you're just such pioneers, because that became like all the rage. Like I'm thinking about like all the artists where they're like, oh, okay, now I'm doing this
like a house concert.
House concert that became a thing.
It was
they
awesome.
were the first.
And we sang to like a few people at first, and then it really grew arms and legs. And one of the things that we kind of wanted to do was have it grow organically and not be like all over social media. Hey, come here. Also, it was at our home address, so we weren't trying to, invite everybody in the world, but it was something that like belonged to our community, and that the community could really just call their own. And we would put a sign out in the front yard in Sharpie when we would be gearing up for the concert that week. And if it wasn't going to rain, we were going to do a concert on Friday night, and people brought their families and would bring picnic blankets and just food and drink and just hang out and get to know their neighbors. So it was really special for us.
And everybody was very like, the whole community just nurtured the idea of it. And we put a tip bucket out, and I mean, we'd make $1,000 in there. I mean, it wasn't till later on, once it started really packing out. I mean, we'd have, we tried to make sure everybody's socially distanced, but by the end of it, I mean, started packing out. The whole neighborhood would be packed full of people, and it became like a good way to bring, like a lot of our musician friends were broke, like we were. And, it's a good way to kind of spread the love and drum up a little bit of work for all our friends, and because it was funny, and it's not like that's why we started it. Like it was out of the goodness of our heart. It was more like, I'd start getting texts and phone calls from people like, "Hey man, I heard about this thing you're doing on your porch. I need to get in on that.
Yeah.
Man. My rent's coming up."
Yeah.
So I'd be like, "All right, so come put a little band together, or whatever. Come on over and do it, and put the tip bucket out, and So it's surprising how giving people are when you tell them, hey, every dollar you put in this bucket's going to these guys up here. And it's like, there's just really no reason for them to, not to give back. Not to mention we live in a pretty nice neighborhood here, so they can afford it.
Well, and there's a lot of good songwriters in our neck of the woods too. So it was nice to feature them and kind of showcase what they can do that the neighbors may not have known. Hey, that guy lives down the street and he's a great songwriter. And, it was just a really cool way to meet other people and spread the love,
Only in Nashville, for those of you that are considering moving here, can you see like renowned musicians like playing on their porch? I love it.
Yeah. We've had some serious special guests. It's been great. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the sound of Wakefield, because it's interesting. As we've talked about throughout the discussion, I mean, you backed up Adam for years while also pursuing your own, solo projects.
Yeah.
So, what did you want to say that was different with, this act? And it also, you are new parents as well to two beautiful young children. So I would just be curious to know, how that also informed, what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel like we have always sang together. Even in the early days when it was just for fun on the couch, getting to know each other and all that.
You'd sing to each other. It's so romantic.
Yeah. How cliche. But we have, no matter who's got a project going on, there's usually 5 projects happening at once. It just depends on what it is. We've always found ways to get involved and support each other in that. And so for this, it's just kind of like, we've been doing this thing and our neighbors know us as this and everybody knows us as a couple that performs together, but we don't really have anything out in the world besides our own separate names. So it was really nice now that we're married, now that we are the Wakefields, I think you came up with just Wakefield as something to kind of stamp our music.
I think kind of great grand.
Just kind of call it what it is.
Yeah, it's just kind of kind of indicative of a life here too. We're always having a discussion about how we wish we were doing this together, and we were like more, and we were out on the road and releasing more music and doing all that. But the reality of it is, like we're just trying to pay the bills, So, like my journey since I've been in Nashville, as much as I wish it was, steered by my love of music and what I was working on. A lot of it was like, hey, these guys are gonna, these guys will sign you and give you this much money up front. And, if you do this kind of music, then this booking agent will book you and put you in front of this person. And so it's like, you're always just following the opportunities.
Eggs in baskets.
It's not, meanwhile, it's like, the whole time I'm like, yeah, this is great. But when me and my wife sing together and we sing our like original songs that we've written that are specially catered for our voices and, come up with cool, complex harmonies and stuff. And, like it's way better than any of this other stuff I'm doing. But this just happens to be what's paying the bills right now. And that's the kind of, that's the sad part. And there's a, certain side of me that's always like, I could just go back to painting people's houses and just that I want to make. But
that would be
unfortunately, I've said it so many times, and I don't know. I was pretty down and out about it a couple of years ago, especially like during COVID. And I was like, shit, I'll just go back to, I'm sick of dealing with the industry and just all the people. And I was like, I'm just gonna go back to painting houses. And then I remembered how much money I made painting houses, and I was like, I can't go back.
It wasn't
Somehow I make more money playing music, I guess.
Well, we've worked at it really hard for a really long time and doing a lot of different jobs, music related or otherwise, to make ends meet. And we've had successes and highs and lows, and you know how it is. So, I just feel like, to me, when I think about Wakefield, I think about coming home. And to me, it's just like, it's our family. It's something we could pass on to our kids should they be interested in music, which hopefully they will, because I don't know what we would do with like a soccer player. Who knows? But to me, it's just like, it symbolizes everything that we've worked for and everything that is ours and that is comfortable and that is in our heart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think the music that we make together, especially when we sing together, is pretty undeniable.
And I hope so. Also that.
I mean, I don't know. There was a time where like we would go out and we would do our thing. Like we'd be I would like go out and play like my compromised like music that I'd made that I was selling at the time and go, and do my thing. And then, for like at a festival for lots of people and that like, some country music festival and I'm up there in front of thousands of people and they could just give a shit that I was there. They're just drinking beer, waiting for whoever, Chris or, Brian or whoever the headlining dude is, and then come home and go with her and go open for somebody in town and, sing and play our songs and get standing ovations. And it's like, why, this, what?
What are we doing? Yeah.
But this one doesn't pay and this one does. So you got to make the money, so you got
perhaps.
Yeah. So, and that's everybody's story here. I mean, most of the guys that I know here that are, and women that live here that are musicians, I mean, a lot of them, they'll play for a major artist and then they come home and then they play good music that they want to, play. That's like, fun, that's fulfilling. So I think that's a pretty standard story for a lot. There's some lucky ones out there to get to play great music, for their actual job, which is good. That's always the goal. But I mean, there's a lot of, a lot of people just kind of getting their paychecks on the weekend and then coming home and playing with their buddies and, in the crappy little clubs here in Nashville, just because it's fun.
And it's still better than doing accounting during the day and music on the side, so.
Well, let's talk about the sound because I know even a couple of the videos that I watched recently on social media, which are really great, by the way. They're very, for anyone that's watching this, they put out these really beautiful videos of them performing in their home setting. And it's very like intimate, but also still has enough professionalism to it. So I thoroughly enjoyed those. But it almost had kind of like a gospel sort of sound to it. Definitely like a little bit more of like a spiritual kind of like tone. So I just would love to know a little bit about the sound and maybe how, again, being new parents and having this married life, even though you've been together for a long time, has, shaped the sound.
Well, I mean, we both kind of come from somewhat different backgrounds singing wise. But I think, for us, it's a lot about the songs and the songwriting. And thankfully, we're both somewhat versed in lots of different things. So depending upon the song, we can kind of cater our voices and the arrangements and all that stuff to fit that. It's like the gospel thing you said. I've like played a lot of like gospel stuff, like Baptist church gospel stuff. So I was always big into the Jackson Southern Airs and the Canton Spirituals and Luther Barnes and all the kind of like older, like, church gospel music. Jenny's very familiar with like kind of the other side of gospel music, the kind of bluegrass side of stuff.
And I sing like an angel, so there's that. Just kidding.
So
it really does, honestly. You don't have to be modest with it.
So when you combine those two things, it's you get a really great sound. I mean, and it's tough sometimes too. I mean, we have to, a lot about singing with each other is about, like you have to make compromises and things. Like for instance, like gospel music that's come from bluegrass side of things, there's zero vibrato. People like Ricky Skaggs and
hold a note forever.
That's
where I
just
shine.
Like zero,
there's
zero
no
vibrato. Whereas like gospel music, people, Haley Jackson or like Aretha Franklin, people that come from that side of things, they have these gigantic vibratos. And so I have a pretty pronounced vibrato that comes from that influence. And she does the other thing. So when we sing together, like we have to like figure out, all right, we're going to sing vibrato on this. We sing this straight.
And where is it going to land and how much? And like back to that, like really detail oriented process. Like, I feel like that's something that we do really well together, kind of without sitting down and saying, okay, we're going to figure this out. Like we kind of naturally, organically kind of do that.
Yeah. The more you put arrangements together and work on blending well with singers, the more it comes naturally, I feel like. And we just kind of got to a point over the years where it's so natural. It's like be sitting around and I'd write a song with some cool chord changes or whatever. And I'd be like, man, I want to hear what our voices sound like on this. And so we just go do that. It's just such a kind of natural, organic thing. It's like, why not do it? Even if no one's going to hear it, who cares?
Oh, and you can tell, I mean, that you've been playing together or performing together rather for years. I mean, because that's a great word, blended. Your voices were like one. It was really, really cool to listen to. And I mean, it was just so seamless as far as like how they like are interwoven with one another.
It doesn't happen with everybody. Like I like singing as a demo singer. I've sang with a lot of people. I've sang a lot of types of music, but I've never met anybody else where it feels so natural to sing with than Adam. So
well, and I mean, when I first started singing with her, I was so bad for so long, and, through sheer force of will, became a good singer. And thankfully she came along. And I remember when we first started singing together, first song we ever sang together was Yesterday, that Beatles song. And we started singing and I was like, whoa.
That old saying.
That's what it's like to sing in tune. Okay. I'm going to do some homework here. I'll get back to you. So honestly, I bet the first like 6 months we were singing together, my whole, especially like my pitch did one of these just because, I had a rock like her to sing against, and every time I'd hit a wrong note, I'd be like, yeah, that's not right. Yeah, that's flat, and it's flat again. So it was one of those, like, she just like whipped me into shape really quick on getting my pitch up, because she's just like she's just dead ringer on those things.
Johnny, you're a beast.
Thanks, babe.
So one last question. You two have you're very open that you are a family band, and you also travel quite extensively with your young daughter, Fern. I know you said something crazy, like she's been on like 48 flights or so far in her life. So tell us a little bit about this new tagline you developed called Singing for Your Supper, and why you want to basically be on the road all the time as a family band.
For me personally, I think we do really well on the road. We're adaptive. We don't follow a strict nap schedule, anything like that. We love to, we love to adventure. And travel has just always been a big fabric of what we do. And so when we had Fern, everybody's expectation was that we would stop. And really, I think we've traveled more in the last couple years than ever before, specifically because she's free until she's 2, so to fly. So she has her own Rapid Rewards account on Southwest. She's been on over 40 flights, and we've been all over the world, both when I was pregnant with her, and then again, even to the same songwriting festivals when she was born. And then now we've got baby Warren in the mix, and he's already been to Mexico and all over the US. So we're just keeping it going. And I think that like traveling with a family, we just fell in love with doing that, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to keep doing it.
Well, even bringing the kids with us on the road. I mean, like when we had Fern and we would go, whether we were doing like songwriter stuff or, whatever festivals or opening for people, it's like, I mean, honestly, like, and it doesn't hurt that she's cute as a bug's ear, but like, we'll be doing a show. I remember we were doing a show here in Nashville, and like, she got really upset because she wanted mommy. And so she like came out on stage, and, got up and sat on her lap and then sang the ABCs for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was everyone's favorite part of the show. So that doesn't hurt either. But I also think with kids and everything, like, man, everybody's like all about getting kids in a routine, and I feel like it's the worst thing for them. Like, you just need to let them go out and, like do different stuff every day, and like just be forced to like be like, normal humans that, have to deal with problems every day. And, and like, whether she's sleeping on a couch, taking a nap on a couch, or in the back of the van, or
by a pool,
wherever,
in a raft,
beach,
wherever.
Fern has a career as a roadie in her future.
Exactly. She's great. She really is great on the road, and with Warren, we didn't know, he's so young,
for sure. In traveling, so we'll see with him, but we've spent almost a month in Mexico doing a songwriting festival, and Warren was in the carrier the whole time. He just bopped along. People are like, is that even a real baby in there? He was on stage with me. I would sing with him, just carrying him around, and he just loved it. So
He's doing great.
These kids are not like real humans.
No, I mean, Fern always comes up on stage, and I think she's, she sings already, and I think she loves the piano, and I think it's gonna be, I think we're gonna be singing backups for her pretty soon.
I love that. And what a perfect genre to have. I mean, a family in country music. I feel like people almost like expect it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially in country music, like it's very family friendly, and it's not like a clean message or anything that we're sending out. Like I still love to write songs with a lot of humor in them and things like that. And I think writing wise, we would draw inspiration just the same as before we were parents. But I do think it's a comfortable genre for introducing that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe one or two less cheating songs.
One or two less, yeah.
Just because, I think about my parents cheating on each other, and it's just gross. So,
yeah.
But
I mean, we've got some wholesome, and then we've got some funny, and it's a mix. But I do think it's something that we can continue to build on and build inspiration for, and hopefully pass down one day.
So not sleazy, but not Sesame Street either.
Exactly.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
We're real, just like we are, just real people.
Yeah, maybe. Spot for us.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to be higher MPAA rating. Thank you for that, by the way. We're actually going to have a performance by Wakefield after this. So thank you so much for sitting down for the interview portion of this.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Try building bridges instead of burning them. Stop judging folks, start learning them. And when I get knocked down, I turn the other cheek. Keep an eye on the strong, protect the weak. It's faster to than it is to heal. But some wars can't be won with iron and steel. I'd wield love like a saber and fight hate to the tooth. If I was Jesus, that's what I'd do. I love you no matter the color of your skin. I care more about where we're going than where we've been. I give you what you need, not what you've earned. Even if I don't get it back in return. It's faster to wound than it is to heal. But some wars can't be won with iron and steel. I'd wield love like a saber and fight hate to the tooth. If I was Jesus, that's what I'd do. I know that evil is evil just the same, even when it is done in my name. I'd cast down the ones who rule by fear and spread songs of hope for everyone to hear. It's faster to than it is to heal. But some wars can't be won with iron and steel. I temper my pride, champion the truth. If I was Jesus,